Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Get Printing. I'm your host, Zach Dewhurst, the Business Development Manager at DecoNetwork. I'm also the owner of PrintPhase, a DTF and plastisol screen print transfer supplier. And in all my years of fucking doing this, Hey, hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Get Printing. I'm your host, Zach Dewhurst, the Business Development Manager at DecoNetwork. I'm also the owner of PrintPhase, a plastisol screen print and DTF transfer supply company. I started my business back in 2009, and the year after, I signed up for the game-changing software DecoNetwork. Now, one thing that I've learned in all my time is that there's a lot of different business models a shop can pursue in the decoration industry. So, do you ever ask yourself if you're leaving money on the table by not selling pre-decorated retail products? Well, today we're thrilled to have Tip Pipp, founder of Beeze Tees, located in Keene, New Hampshire, which he started all the way back in 2009. Fun fact about Tim, he just did a 2-week tour of Thailand where he bought a lot of t-shirts for just $2, brought them home to the States, washed them, and now they all fit like an extra small. So it's interesting when you get your t-shirts or somewhere else across the world, they may not have the same wash as what you get here in the States. Tim has founded 2 different store locations for his business in Keene and Manchester, New Hampshire, and these locations have really helped drive up his custom business. But before we jump into today's episode, it is brought to you by DecoNetwork, the all-in-one print shop automation software. Do you ever ask yourself if you're tired of juggling multiple tools to keep your print shop running smoothly? Well, DecoNetwork is here to transform the way you do business. With DecoNetwork, you can effortlessly organize production, integrate with suppliers, manage orders, and sell online all on one platform. No more headaches or wasted time using multiple pieces of software. DecoNetwork streamlines your workflow from order management to artwork approval, production workflows, and shipping. Plus, with its powerful e-commerce capabilities, you can create a beautiful website in minutes using the drag and drop what you see, what you get editor. Now, it's time to take your business to the next level. Visit DecoNetwork.com to request your free demo today. DecoNetwork, the print shop automation software to organize production and sell online. Now, let's get back to the show. How's it going, Tim?
Good, how are you?
Tim, I'm really glad to have this conversation today because you're one of my favorite, essentially t-shirt print shops to follow on social media. You do a lot of really cool things when it comes to using your retail space to essentially grow your business when it comes to both custom and pre-decorated orders. One of my favorite things about this industry is all the different revenue models you can pursue, and you can pursue them all at once. And again, you're one of those few that I see that is really getting into both the custom and the retail. So tell us a little bit about Beeze Tees.
Yeah, we started in 2010. It's been 14 years this month, actually. Started it when I was in college, going into my senior year. And, I had a mentor. I was a runner in college. My college coach was a screen printer prior to being a coach. And he kind of just put this bug in my ear that this was a good business. And I was a graphic design major and just a real busybody and always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And going into my senior year, I kind of quit everything, quit all the jobs I had on campus. I became a part-time student once I could, and taught myself how to screen print. And, it was just kind of a one thing led to the next thing, led to the next thing. I didn't expect this to be what I was going to do for a living. But by the time I graduated college, I graduated on Saturday and was full-time on Monday, and been doing it ever since.
I feel like a lot of us in this industry didn't plan on doing it.
Yeah.
It's something you can side hustle, especially when you're in college. I mean, I was in college, 2009, 2010, started my business and was part-time until, I graduated. And then that Monday after, you're full-time, committed. So Beeze Tees, what all do you guys do in-house?
So in-house, I mean, what we do in general is, and I always say to our customers, we can do anything that is printed. The only thing where we don't touch is vehicle stuff, wraps or lettering or anything like that. But we do all types of apparel. We do embroidery, screen print. We had always done vinyl and digital vinyl and screen printed transfers prior to the direct to film business. But now we're pretty deep into the direct to film. We have 2 direct to film printers, and we also wholesale like everybody else. And then we do promotional products, and we do signage like banners and yard signs and stuff like that. A lot of paper stuff, business cards, rack cards, door hangers, and then trade show stuff like tents and booths and stuff like that. When I first started, I said I'm going to be a screen printer. I'm going to be really good at screen printing, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And I tell a lot of people, it might have been 2 months later, I get a phone call. Do you guys do embroidery? And I said, no, we don't do embroidery. And it was a woman, I don't even remember what order it was, but she goes, all right, well, I'll find somebody who could do screen print and embroidery. And I said, wait a second, I might have misheard you. Did you say embroidery? She goes, yeah. I go, we do embroidery. And so that was the moment we started doing embroidery. I outsourced it for probably 2 or 3 years. And I looked at my number at the end of the year and realized that I was spending $25,000 a year on embroidery, and a machine cost me 17 or 20 or whatever it was at the time. So I bought an embroidery machine, and we've kind of grown from that. And pretty much everything we've done has been asked for by customers. Do you do tents? Do you do yard signs? Do you do promotional products? And I didn't want to get into those things initially, but we just sort of grew to what our customer needs were. And so, our growth has been very organic, I would say, and we've just listened to our customers and given them what they wanted.
You said a couple things there that makes a lot of sense. One, your customer does not care if you actually do the production yourself.
Right. Yeah.
You're not making tents, I don't think. You're not doing those door hangers you just described.
No.
What technology has allowed us to do, especially with these websites, you can partner up with trade partners in the industry. I didn't realize how easy how good the margins were with outsourcing signs until around a year ago. It's like, why? I really wanted to buy an EcoSolvent printer a couple years ago. It's like, man, I really like one of those. I could not print with that thing as cheap as it is to outsource. Yep. So all those paper products, all of the banners, outsource promo. Do you really want to buy your own equipment, learn that? No, it's so easy to outsource. Your customers don't care as long as the quality is there. Your service is good. We're in a service-based industry. So, and the other thing you were really pointing out there, your customers want a one-stop shop. Every time you say no, you're giving your competition a chance to say yes. And if they do everything the customer needs, the customers like that one-stop shop experience. Now, right now, you're primarily screen, embroidery, DTF, right? Those are the big three that you are primarily doing in-house.
Yes.
Talk to us about your locations, because I find that very unique. When in the industry, most of us start in a 3rd bedroom, basement, garage. Where are you doing your production?
Well, I also started in the basement. I have pictures of back then. I had, it would flood, and I'd divert all the water in one way. So I think we all have that kind of same story. I didn't have a garage, so I had to do the basement. And it's even funnier. I asked my landlord, "Hey, do you mind if I start, a little side business in the basement?" He goes, "Yeah, not a problem." And I remember he came down to fix our water heater or something like that, and he called me up. He goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That's an operation. That's not a hobby." And, it was once right before I graduated, I had bought equipment, and I had, it was all manual stuff, but it wasn't, it wasn't anything crazy. But for that little basement, I filled up the whole basement with stuff. But, so we started in the basement, moved to a warehouse space, and, the way I used to describe where my business was behind a business, on the side of the loading dock, through the double doors, next to the dumpsters. And that's not a way to describe your business. It worked for a while. My rent was pretty low, but I started looking for another space, and that's kind of where we came up came to the retail model. In our area, retail space was very similarly priced to warehouse space. So 5,000 square feet in a warehouse would have cost me $2,500 a month. 5,000 square feet on our main street in town cost me $2,500 a month. So I went to Main Street, and we doubled our sales from 2013 to 2014 right as soon as we moved in. A lot of people had never even heard of us. And we actually won a new business of the year in 2014, even though we'd already been in business for 4 years. So people were just recognizing that we were around. And it was at that moment I was like, wait a second, like I didn't expect to grow this much. And so we had the store. We worked in that store for up until 2017, and then in 2017, I bought a warehouse about 10 minutes from our store, filled that with automatics and embroidery and everything. So end of 2017, I ended up moving our store from one side of Main Street to the other. So we were 116, now we're 117. We literally are across the street. We were rolling racks at 5 o'clock in the morning across the main street in our town. And so, we moved for a number of reasons. One, our rent had gone up tremendously over the 3 years. Parking was an issue. We have an actual parking lot behind us in our store now. And then and then I wanted to do a nice build out. We have a nice store. It's modern looking, or it was at least 8 years ago. Barn board backdrop and nice wood floors and nice racks and stuff like that. And so we have our production facility. It's in Marlborough, New Hampshire, which is about 10 minutes away. We have our store in Keene, which serves as a showroom and a retail store. And then we opened up our second store in 2020 in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is the largest city in New Hampshire, but also it's right next to the Capitol. It's about an hour and 15 from our Keene store. And we opened it in February of 2020. So we obviously.
Oh yeah, what a great time to be opening up a retail space, February 2020.
And it's tough because,
gosh, dude, your timing is terrible.
I know. Well, if I could have picked the timing, it would have been different. But I've been working on it for about a year, and I signed a lease in, I think it was July or August of 2019. So we got in. I'd done the renovations. I did all the renovations myself. I laid the flooring. I painted the walls. I took down stuff. I added a door. I did a lot of different things. And we opened the door, and then that's when COVID started becoming popular. And a couple of weeks into February, we start getting shut down, and events are stopping and stuff like that. And so from the end of February until I think July or August, we were shut down. So we had, we went into Manchester not having business there, hoping that we'd get business the same way we did in Keene. And that got put to a screaming halt. But truthfully, it ended up working out. I could have backed out of it completely, but I figured, you know what, we'll just try it out. And if it, I could leave at any time, and it worked out. It's just, I was telling you earlier, we're gonna close it down at the end of the year. That's the end of our lease, and we got a good customer base that I know will follow us, and they don't really need a location to come to. So, but right now we have the 2 stores and then production facility.
And okay, so talk to me a little bit about just the production facility. How big?
The total building's 10,000 square feet. We occupy about 8.
Okay, and again, DTF embroidery, screen print. What are you roughly paying per square foot for 10,000? You keep saying, like 5,000 square feet for 2,500. It's like, gosh, I wish I could get space for 50 cents a square foot. Is it still that way? Was it just cheaper back then, or?
Well,
and you now own your production facility, right? Is that what you said?
I did. I ended up selling it in, I think at the end of 22. I'll give you a little story. When I went to go buy this building, it was owned by the Mountain Corporation, which is a big retail brand in screen printing, and they're in the town that we print in. And they got bought out by a publicly traded company, so they were unloading some buildings. I made an offer on the building. It was accepted. We started going through the process, and in come walks the old owner of the Mountain and his son. And they said, well, we want to buy that building because my son wants to use it for his business. And I said, but I want the building. I want to own it. And they said, well, what if we bought it and rented it to you? And I said, but I've wanted to get into real estate. That was kind of my, after I realized this business was working, I wanted to invest in real estate. And so, I said, you know what, I've got 2,000 square feet that I can rent to you. That's all he needed anyway. And so that's the deal we made. And I went through with the sale of the building. Turns out that the Small Business Association needed a environmental study done on the land before we closed. It was going to cost me $12,000 to $15,000 to do so. So I backed out of the deal for the bank, and this guy ended up financing the deal. And for 6 years, 5 years, whatever it was, him and me and his son are very friendly, and we talked, hey, you want to sell the building or whatever. It's getting to the point where we're growing out of this space. We grew out of it, I think, probably a year into it, which is pretty common for me. And so I said, you know what? I'll sell you the building if we can come up with a good deal. And the deal was I sold it to him for what I paid for it, and then I got a reduced rent. So I'm telling you the story because the deal I got was a reduced rent. I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm paying $1,600 a month, 5-year lease for 8,000 square feet. So I can't leave. And, it's a hell of a deal.
Jeez.
And, it's the easiest check to write every month because, like you said, 50 cents a square foot. That's,
if it was twice that, it would be a hell of a deal.
You're
a quarter a square foot.
I know.
Gosh.
So,
and you're in New Hampshire. When I think of New Hampshire, I don't think out in the middle of nowhere where it's going to be cheap. I mean, you're in a condensed population on the East Coast.
We have no housing, like no housing at all. If you look up housing on like Zillow or whatever, there's 3 houses between $1 and $1 million right now. There's just no housing. And industrial buildings are impossible to get, or commercial, buildings.
I've been looking, Tim. I can't find anything, and it's impossible out where I am. What happened here was literally 3 miles down my street, Intel's building a $22 billion chip factory. Fathom $22 billion right now, Tim, because when you hear like, oh, we're building a new stadium, well, how much is that going to cost? $500 million.
Yeah, right.
$22 billion has just destroyed all real estate around here. Nobody's willing to sell. They're holding on to it because they haven't opened it. And I just don't see, it screwed up the market so much that I'm contemplating literally turning my residential property, breaking some rules, but just building another 3,000 square foot building on it and trying to keep my residential as my actual business because it's cheaper to own that than it is to rent or buy commercial. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's a heck of a deal. And But the whole point of not the whole point of this conversation though, is, most of us do when we have a production facility, it's kind of like if it's not unlike my situation, my own property, it's like with yours, it's an industrial space. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily set up for the foot traffics. Sometimes you have that showroom and they can. But when you're looking for space, you either look for industrial typically for commercial, or you may look at that storefront. And when I do these shop tours, touring with the marketing team at these shows, I've seen both. And I've been in, we've been making videos in a shop. The one I really think about is Jay-Z Embroidery in Duncanville, Texas. I kid you not, every 5 minutes, somebody's coming in. Somebody's coming in. Yeah. Somebody's coming in. And it's like, geez, if I spent $3,000 a month on a retail space, this could lead to way more than $3,000 worth of sales just because of that physical location. But at the same time, between COVID, Amazon, and everything else, gosh, it's just, I can't remember the last, I tried to boycott Amazon for the longest time. And it's just like, this is too convenient. And now, you know what? I'm out of embroidery backing. Well, guess what? It's going to come here in 4 hours because my last shop location is literally now an Amazon fulfillment center.
Oh, that's fine.
Bulldozed everything on. It's a fulfillment center. I can get most things in 4 hours free shipping. So talk to us a little bit about when you decided to go into the first retail location, and what the strategy is behind that, and how has it really helped grow your business? Because you said it doubled, right? It doubled when you had that first retail space, or was it it wasn't that commercial industrial, right?
No, so yeah, 2017 we moved into the new retail space that we're in today. But in 2014 we moved in on Main Street into a retail location. Great storefront, big window. The whole front is a window. There was nothing but a window in front, so it allowed us to display stuff you could see in. You could see stuff happening. We started in that store printing, so I had two manual presses, the dryer. There was 2 feet between the wall to walk through, totally, so you couldn't get through otherwise.
Yeah.
But I had, when we moved there, I want to say I had 5 or 6 employees. But when we left there, we had about 12 employees, and we're talking 2,500 square foot for retail.
12 employees. Oh, that's tight,
terrible,
man.
It was terrible. And we built a makeshift washout room. It was, it was smaller than a normal sized bathroom. The nice thing about the space was we had a 2,500 square foot basement, so storage was not a problem for us. We were storing all of our screens, we were storing inks and everything down in the basement, extra shirts or whatever we had. So we ended up, whereas a lot of shops will have maybe pallet racking or something like that for storage, I had a full 2,500 square foot basement, so the storage wasn't a problem. But again, I had no intention to move to Main Street. That was just not in. I was expecting bigger warehouse, but the foot traffic that we got or get is amazing. Keene is a very in the fall is a very touristy location. We get really nice, foliage and leaf peepers come and look at, drive up and down the windy roads and stuff. So we get a lot of people coming through town, and they want to buy a New Hampshire shirt, they want to buy a Keene shirt, they want to buy something like that. We've become somewhat of a souvenir shop in that sense. But we also have the college walkable distance, the Keene State, which is where I went to college. We have the best options available for the college. We're licensed and everything, so we do everything through them. And they've got a bookstore that often sends people to us because we have more and better options. So, there's a couple retail things that we do pretty well. But in our first store, we did it really bad. Like we just didn't have a whole lot of retail sales. I didn't really know much about retail at the time. Not that I know a lot now, but it's been a lot of trial and error. Things that, things would sit for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Now we sort of know what our customers want, and they tell us too, hey, you don't have any women's or long sleeves or tank tops or whatever. And so once we hear that enough, we're like, all right, we got to bring in some tank tops or whatever it is. But
you're probably also, holding less inventory now that you have DTF versus just screen printing.
Yep.
I mean, when you set up that auto, you don't want to just keep tearing it down. You kind of are committed versus you print a transfer. And that's even if you haven't pressed it. I don't mind sitting this on the shelf because I've got all these blanks. Yep. Boom. Because, when I think of going down to the beach and you see all those T-shirt shops, they sell a shirt. And the minute after it's sold and while you're walking out, they're grabbing a new blank, the same transfer. And it was plastisol, for many years, but it's back on the shelf. That's the way a lot of retail is done. So, again, I know you used to do wholesale or contract as well.
We did.
Again, you're one of those, I'm going to do retail, I'm going to do wholesale, I'm going to do contract. Hey, I've been there, except I'm not as smart as you. So I am just spinning my wheels at all time. And it sounds like you had to build a team to be able to do this because you have 12 staff, you can really start to explore these different things. So how is, was the initial intention to have that space for retail, or was it again, primarily there for custom, with retail just being kind of a little bonus? Like what's the mentality there?
That's still it. We now have the store with no equipment in it. There's no printing done here, which is also confusing to our customers. People want to come in and get something right now. We don't do that. But when we first moved to Main Street, I thought, oh, this retail component, this is going to go very well. We're going to make millions of dollars in retail. That's not the case. And, we do, I think it's like 2% of our sales a year is retail. So it's very, very low. And, but it's the icing on the cake. It also gets people in the door. So people see the windows, they see Key, New Hampshire, they see whatever we're doing. If there's Easter or Father's Day or Mother's Day or whatever, we have stuff geared towards that outside. People come in, they poke around, and then they're like, wait a second, you guys print this stuff? I have a business, let's talk. So
Yeah.
it's an absolute draw for them to come in. And I always wanted to have stuff for everyone. So we have licensed Red Sox, Bruins, Patriots, all Boston, sports stuff. We have, I talked about the Mountain being a retail brand. We used to carry a lot of their stuff. Liquid Blue, which is also a New Hampshire screen printing company, both big companies that sell nationally. We've had stuff from them. Soli's out of Boston, So we brought in a bunch of this stuff to draw people in, and we've recognized some works, most doesn't. So 99% of our stuff now in the store is something we've printed rather than consigning or bringing stuff in. We had a consignment program, and I really thought it would work. Other artists or designers or printers or whatever would have their stuff in our store. We'd sell it. We'd take, I think it was 20%, and then we'd give them the rest. It just didn't work the way I was expecting it to. It was more work than it was worth. And so, we ended up getting rid of all the consignment stuff, and we don't have a whole lot of this stuff that we didn't print in the store anymore. But, and 2%, it's hard to focus a lot on it. And I have some plans in the next year to boost our retail business in general. I'm interested in buying up a retail brand that's existing, that's doing a really good job. That's in other stores selling potentially, and then selling online. And I would like to buy a business because it's already established. It's not something we have to do. And I've got a couple in mind, but so that's kind of the next step.
Yeah. Okay. So, and again, you're doing so much with the licensed. What was that like? And when you're doing retail, it's different versus getting something off of the internet that you have rights to use versus that Red Sox logo. I mean, it sells itself. How difficult was it to get those licensed? And what's that
each
like?
one's different. So we don't do the work for the licensed stuff. Typically, we are just buying it in. So 47 brands out of Boston. If you've ever used 47 brand hats, the blanks through S&S, they're wonderful. They're some of the best hats out there.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and so I was at a Red Sox baseball game, bought myself I went to a 47 store, bought a hat, loved it. I'm sitting at the Red Sox stadium, emailing, support it, whatever, and said, I've got a storefront. I'd like to carry your stuff. I think it would do well. And, somebody shoots back an email and says, you can't sell it online. Here's the rules. And you fill out the application. I don't really remember how 47 brand worked, but there was like a contract. I'm not allowed to decorate them. So if I buy a T-shirt from 47 brand, I can't throw Tom Brady's number on the back of it. Just can't. So, there's rules to a lot of this stuff. Some of the other ones like Keene State, we have to go through an approval process. We got every single order we do for them, we have to send their marketing department a proof of it, and they approve or decline it. The city, we do the same thing. So a lot of our licensing has restrictions, has rules that we have to follow. But it's also, once you get in, you're in too. So we just did this Wizarding Week in Keene, and
we're gonna talk about that. That's so cool.
So, we did some printing. Most of the stuff that we did was very generic. It was not Harry Potter. It was just like a wizard or, very subtle.
Just a tie,
the tie one. But we also had a lot of licensed stuff. So I went to New Jersey last summer, 2 summers ago, picked up a Harry Potter magnet, looked on the back. It had the brand that where it came from. I emailed them while I was in the store. It was, what's that candy store that's big? I I don't know. There's a big national candy store that is everywhere. I think it's called Icing, or I don't know what it is. Anyway, I looked on the back, emailed them. I got a phone call right when we got in the car, and I had an account by the end of the day. And so what they wanted was a photo of our storefront to make sure that we actually had a storefront, which is a common ask. Because if you're selling retail in a store, they want to make sure that you're not selling it online, or you're not selling it, at a place that isn't an established storefront. So a photo of our storefront, our tax ID number. We're in New Hampshire, so there is no resale certificate, which is often kind of a challenge. But the state of New Hampshire has a website that basically says we don't have a resale certificate because we don't have any sales tax. So, which makes it a lot easier. But so that's kind of, you fill out the application, they ask you a number of questions. It's just like the trade printing sign stuff. You have to prove that you're
you're in the
trade,
industry. Yep.
you're in the trade. So, but we also have to abide by a lot of rules. And so people come in and they're like, hey, could I get a Patriots logo? And all shops should say no. But we absolutely have to say no, or we can get in more trouble with our licensed stuff. Yep. So if I get in trouble with any of these big brands, I could get pulled from a lot of our vendors. So, it's an interesting way to go. The licensed stuff doesn't do as well as I was hoping. We're actually going to be doing a Comic-Con next month in Manchester, and I reached out to all of my licensed places, and I mean, they've got a ton of stuff for a Comic-Con. So all that stuff we're going to buy in, and we'll just be retail selling it and probably not producing much, but it allows us to have another option to go, lanyards and buttons and magnets and stuff like that. So we're not knocking off kind of thing.
So when I was a freshman in college, then sophomore year, I decided to essentially quit the job and go start my own printing business. I worked at a licensed Ohio State t-shirt shop, and they didn't do any of the printing. They had a second location out in Pennsylvania. They did the printing and shipped us the shirts. But before they printed anything, they'd have to send it to Ohio State, get approval, and it was definitely a process. And what we really found was the non-licensed design sold the best. Mm-hmm. And Ohio State didn't always like that. Some of these designs, like there's just, and you walk that fine line because you do not want to upset them. You're like, gosh, I know this is going to sell really well, but Ohio State doesn't want it next to a licensed product. And I do find it interesting though how you just explained. There's situations where you can work directly with the university and you can do the production, but then you have these other big professional brands where it's more of you're buying that product at a wholesale or consignment and you are selling it from there and you're making your cut. Very different animals. When you going back to like the mountain, is that the one where like everything was oversized on a shirt? Oh, that's really cool.
The big face stuff. So if you've seen like ape face kind of thing, their big one. So when I was in college, I learned about them before I got into printing because they blew up. The Three Wolf Moon is their big hit, and they just proven the model. It's not, you don't have to go crazy with advertising. They got one really good Amazon review, and that's what blew them up. It was this like some guy said the shirt changed his life. He was now getting all these women, and like just it blew up
because there's three.
Yeah. And so that was back in probably I'd say 2008 or 9, I would say, and they've since they sold it to a publicly traded company. And last year, they actually went out of business, and they got bought up by Liquid Blue. So now they're under Liquid Blue, but they went through a number of changes since I've seen it. But they do a really nice retail brand, and they're I was out in Vegas a few years ago, and there's mountain stuff in their souvenir shops. And if you go to a national park, there could be a name drop somewhere on a mountain shirt. But what's funny is seeing it in movies. If you look for, you can see their style. They're all over the movies. Yeah, Will Ferrell has worn, I feel like in every movie, Will Ferrell's wearing a mountain shirt.
Yeah, right now I'm picturing Dwight Schrute in The Office wearing one of those wolf shirts.
He did.
I remember
it was the cat one. 3 Cat Moon, I think, is what he wore. Yeah.
So again, you let's go back to what this retail location though has done for your custom business, because when it comes to that type of storefront location, I've heard, I recently asked in the Shirt Lab group, I suggest everybody out there check out Shirt Lab, especially if you're just getting started and have a lot of questions and want to join that private group to really help avoid some mistakes and so forth. But I was talking with the group about wanting a new location, and I was looking at a couple, and I'm still looking kind of. And I talked about having that retail space, and everybody immediately kept telling me, no. Because they kind of had the mentality, when I said retail space, they were thinking, oh, I'm going to print some things, put it on the shelf and so forth, because almost everybody in that group who went that route didn't find it successful. And it's like, no, I have no interest in sitting on inventory there. But having a physical location like that somebody can walk by, I'm talking about being on a strip next to the grocery store. We as I guess nowadays you could bypass the grocery store, but for a while you couldn't. You had to be there. And it I can tell you, it's not 50 cents a square foot. It gets a lot more expensive. But how has that really helped grow your business? And then you talked about, you're shutting down your second location because while it is in the most popular, the highest population city in the state, it's not giving you the ROI, but you build up the clientele already. Mm-hmm. And now you don't need that higher overhead. You built it. So I look at it is that physical location is a part of my marketing fund. It's overhead, but it's really that storefront. And maybe somebody's walking on the strip, and at the very top, on the sign is Beeze Tees, underneath it screen printing, promo, signage, and you just you can't overlook foot traffic, even though Amazon is destroying it. But talk to us a little bit about, Keene's location and why you think that did better than the Manchester.
Keene has got a very vibrant downtown. It's very walkable. And, after dinner, everybody does the loop. You walk, it's basically, I think it's probably a half a mile, maybe more. Everybody does it. I don't know that everybody calls it the loop or whatever, but and our store is on it. We're pretty much the start of Main Street, and once you get down, you drive further down. But we get a lot of people walking in that have never bought custom apparel. They've never thought about it. They need to get it done. They've gone online to the big guys. They have no idea how to use a design tool. They don't have a design. And what sets us apart from that is we have samples in our stores. So you come in, you could feel it, you could try it on. We have a policy. If you want to try something on, we will buy a sample. And so every single time, if somebody's like, well, I'm not sure if it'll fit, if they say that, samples coming in the next couple of days. And it costs us money for samples, but 75% of the time that sample is going to be used for the order. The other 25% of the time, we're either going to return it or we're going to put it in our clearance bin. And so having the retail store actually allows us to offload some of these extras that we have too. We have a really good clearance section, and we'll just throw Keene State or Keene, New Hampshire on it, and for a little more than cost, or maybe even double cost, we're unloading some of these samples or discontinued items that we have in the store. So it's a place for people to sit down and talk to a real person in person. They get to see options. So, when some people are maybe selling just a basic Gildan t-shirt and that's like their bread and butter, we're not. We're selling Bell & Canvas, the like 3001 CVC or next level stuff, and most of that is, here's your, G5000, here's your, Bella and Canvas, and they touch it. They're like, I don't care the price. I'll take the Bella. And so the difference with, through email or phone call or just ordering directly online is you can't see it or feel it or try it on. And so that model worked right from the beginning. I didn't know that it was going to be such a hit, but it's become a challenge too, because now people want to come in the store and try things on. And so we have to have the store, which is fine. But Keene is a very walkable, New England city. It's got this beautiful, shot down, we're where people take photos of the downtown kind of thing. In Manchester, we're in the historic district, so we really can't change anything. They light up the trees. It's beautiful at night. But there's a lot of corporate headquarters, tech companies, and we print for them, but they're not coming in the store. They're emailing, they're texting, they're calling. And so the difference is just Keene gets a different group of people. And it's not just people that live here. I always give it an example of a woman that came in with her son in 2015 or 16. They love to go to little New England towns. They love to walk in and buy tchotchkes and souvenirs and stuff. And she lives in New York City. And she said, I had a printer, wasn't very happy with them. Can you give me a price? We've been printing for her since then. And so she got this little retail brand for her hometown. Doesn't do a ton of business, but we wouldn't have gotten her if I didn't have a store. And she's turned other people onto us. She's very heavily into politics. So over the years, she's kind of given us some candidates. And so, it's that type of interaction that we're getting. But what it's done for us, and I think a lot of shops don't like it, is it's definitely lowered our average sale to, our typical sales 24 to 48 pieces. It used to be, our average sale used to be about $700 to $1,000. It's not that anymore. But we're also able to produce these things pretty quickly with DTF and embroidery. So people come in, they want one T-shirt, we do it. They're paying a little bit higher per piece, but that's the problem with the storefronts for us it's just lower quantities, a lot of tire kickers, a lot of people coming in not knowing what they want. So we're here to educate and, show them the process and walk through it with them. But then after their first order, a lot of the times they become email orders. So, it's always that first interaction that's what do you want? I don't know. Well, how many? I don't know. Well, what's your logo? I don't have one. And, then a year later, 2 years later, they're like, here's the logo, here's the sizes, here's what I need. So, but we also do a lot of what I wanted to say. Another purpose of the store is people pick up. I love when people pick up in our store because they were never going to come into our store otherwise. So now they come in, they pick up their one shirt from the web store. They look around and they say, I've owned a business for 10 years, never been in here. I need business cards or I need something. So we're not sitting there saying, hey, come in. We're going to let me sell you. It sells itself. They come in, they see what we can do, and the store sells itself. You had talked about the marketing dollars. That's mostly all of our marketing is the storefronts. I spend very little on advertising and marketing anymore. And it just takes people walking around and coming in, and they become a customer.
Do most of and it sounds like, your location brings in the B2C market, but every B2B is also a B2C. If you think about it, every owner is still a consumer. Absolutely. And they get things for themselves. So maybe they took their wife out to dinner, they as a family, and they're walking by the storefront. Oh, look at that. And they walk in, and before you know it, they realize you're doing custom. Because one thing you're doing there when it comes to retail, here's what I've always said, or at least I think. Most customers buy custom shirts when they need them. most businesses don't wake up today and it's like, you know what, I really want to buy some custom shirts. No, they typically have a reason behind it.
Sure.
I need more shirts for my employees. I have an event or something. When it comes to retail, I always use the analogy of like walking through the mall. That's old school. And the Spencers, and they would have that storefront and be like, oh, that's a funny t-shirt. You know what? Let's go in there. The idea is a retail product. You don't wake up today and say, I need that versus a custom. It's a very different, and it's a good way to get your foot in the door. In 2 weeks, we have a big street fair here, and we're going to have a booth. We're not doing custom printing at the street fair. We're printing some DTF transfers of some local stuff, USA and so forth. And the whole point is to the goal is to break even at the actual event, but gain the custom clientele. It's not to necessarily, we're not pushing that. So when it obviously the old cliche thing about retail is location, location, location. The Ray Kroc with McDonald's. They own the most expensive real estate in like every single city. That was the concept. So, you 2% is actually retail, which I find interesting because, somebody's going to look at it and it's like, wow, they got a lot of overhead for this retail. And
Exactly.
it's the consumer aspect of it. And it just, we draw conclusions because I've seen the video you released recently about it's Harry Potter week. And it's like, you know what? If I was in the local area and I saw that video and I liked Harry Potter, which most people do, I'm going to check out your store. And before you know it, I'm going to then start asking, you know what? I've got a family reunion coming up. I have a softball team. There's just, you never know. And I've seen your Google reviews. You have hundreds of perfect reviews. And that's, you're just very organic, it sounds like. Do you, and it sounds like you also do have some regular customers who are coming in there for the retail stuff as well. Now you're getting rid of the second location that you've had for a handful of years, but it has brought you a lot of new clientele and a market that you wouldn't really have as easily because it's not in the same location. So, while you're closing it, the ROI was absolutely there though, right? Because it's brought you the new clientele.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we've been having conversations with a lot of our our regulars, about shutting down, and they're like, okay. And so the way we're going to handle it is we ship from our production facility to our store. We don't drive it down. That was initially the idea, is that I have a shipping guy. He would get in the van every morning, drive it down, drive it back. It's an hour and 15 each way. So he'd spend 4 hours, loading, unloading, driving, all that. COVID hit and that plan completely swapped. So we, at the time I had a regional manager that managed both the stores, and then myself. She was going to go down 2 or 3 days a week, and I was going to go down 2 or 3 days a week, but we were wasting so much time driving. And so I said, you know what, let's just ship. It's not that expensive. Our rates came down. I reached out to UPS and said, we're going to double, triple our shipping next year. Can you help us out? And they did. So we ship, 10 boxes costs us, under $100. So it's like, why not just ship it? And but we're shipping to our store. So next year, instead of shipping to our store, we're just going to ship directly to the customer. So the expense won't go up. It'll be, divvied up into different shipments. But, and our customers are going to be happy. They don't have to drive downtown, find a parking spot, and it's funny and it's true, but the interaction we have in Manchester is they park in front of the fire hydrant with their blinkers on, run out, grab the box, and run back to their car. So they're not waiting around. So this is going to be a convenience for them anyway. So I feel like we're going to end up keeping most of our customers. The only ones that we'll lose are the ones that come in and order 1 or 2 T-shirts, have to sit there and point and all that. But it's going to be a small, just the small stuff is probably what we'll lose, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
Okay. So, it does sound like, though, because this is a common question, if you could do it today, would you still do this? And I do think that Keen, correct me wrong, you still have the demand today that if you had to do it today and that location was available, you'd still pull the trigger, right? Because the foot traffic is as good as it was 10 years ago because of that location.
Yeah.
But like Manchester and so forth, and just most things, those Amazons and everybody else, I mean, bring up the grocery store. The heck, when I'm in the grocery store, a tenth of the people in the aisles are the employees picking everything so that somebody else can do it that easily.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon now, Tim? I mean, like what's the how big is the team currently?
I think we're about 20 right now. I've got 3 in the Keene store, 2 in the Manchester store. I've got a remote graphic designer. He's our only designer. And then I've got a remote web store person, Jake. He does all of our web store building. He does a lot of he deals with our commissions and stuff like that. So if somebody wants to add something to a web store, they reach out to Jake. And then in our production facility, we have, I think, 14 or 15. And so, the next phase for us is getting through the year, closing down the Manchester store. We didn't have a grand opening because of COVID, so I've been considering, and I don't know if I want to do it or not.
Closing?
Just grand closing. And I don't want to mock it, and I don't want people to, I want to be silly, but I still have the grand opening sign in Manchester. Maybe I'll cross it out and put closing. They won't think it's funny, but I will, or we will in a sense. But I think the next step for us is I would like to start looking at acquiring other screen printing companies. Anybody that's retiring out or, growing Manchester has been a project. It cost me, if I were to guess, a little over $100,000 to build out marketing, getting people there. We did a lot of radio ads and stuff like that early on. Hiring and training and hiring again and training again. So, I think the next step for us is really going to be finding an established business that we can take over, and whether it's a Main Street store or it's somebody that's just got a bunch of clients that email them. Our capacity is there. We can probably double our what we do a day. We're currently like a week out for everything. So, our turnaround time is pretty quick right now. DTF has been a huge reason for that. But, we have over 300 stores right now. And, the web store thing has been successful for us. But, and then I just had a conversation about with somebody that builds Amazon stores and Walmart stores, and so I think we might go in that way too, where we build some retail business on Amazon, which isn't easy or cheap, but just from a conversation with this guy, we could we get a hit shirt, it could do thousands a day or a week or something like that. So, I'm always open to anything. I've always said if I could sell a car out back, I would. So we like to stay in our wheelhouse, but so I think that's kind of what's up next for us.
Yeah, you're very diversified. You're going in a lot of different directions at once, and somehow you're managing it all really well. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your insights, talking about the business that you founded, love. Guys, check out BeezeTees.com. Tim, also follow him on Facebook and Beeze Tees. He'll make you laugh at least once a day. You're definitely my wife's favorite print shop owner to follow on Facebook.
Well, thanks.
And Tim, you make it look easy. We're around the same age. I don't have a staff of 20. It's not the route I kind of want to go, but you you're something to definitely strive to become. So thank you again so much, Tim, for joining us. And again, check out beezetees.com. And I'll catch you next time, Tim.
All right. Thank you.